So today I'd like to show you how to make some focaccia. A focaccia is a flat bread and it's usually served as a snack. What I really like about focaccia is it's very versatile. You can flavor it in many ways and it can be served in many ways. You can serve it as a toasty, as an open sandwich, you can serve it with soup. You can also serve it as a welcome snack for a party. So let me show you how to make focaccia. You need 500 grams of flour. Now you'd preferably use some bread flour because it has more protein content, but if you have AP flour like I do, it will work really well. This is 375 ml of water, 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast, a teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, a tablespoon of sugar. These are some onions that have caramelized, a few basil leaves, and some extra salt for sprinkling. To your mixing bowl, add your 1 tablespoon of sugar followed by the 375 ml of water. With a whisk, mix the sugar and water until the sugar has completely dissolved. Follow this up with your 2 teaspoons of yeast. Give it a quick mix and set it aside. Now for your dry ingredients, take your salt and add it to your flour and mix it until it's completely incorporated. Once you see activity in your yeast, add the 2 tablespoons of oil and go in with your flour. So what I do at this stage is I hold back onto some of this flour so it gets easier to mix. Use a spatula to mix your flour and your liquid ingredients. As you mix, you will notice that you've reached a sort of a pasty consistency, and that is when you know you need to add in the rest of the flour. Continue mixing the dough with your spatula and take it to a point where you'd be comfortable enough to begin kneading the dough. I'm going to flour my working surface and I'm going to begin kneading this dough for at least 10 to 15 minutes. Throw in some flour on your dough and simply keep stretching it and pulling it back. Now because how wet this dough is, you might have to continue adding some flour as you knead this dough. But don't add so much flour that the dough ends up tightening out. If the dough is sticking to the bottom of your work surface, it's great news. It's supposed to be a nice loose dough. Once you're done kneading, oil your hands and begin to bring your dough together in some sort of a ball. Now the dough needs to rest for at least 10 minutes. 10 minutes on, your dough is going to be extremely pliable. You will be able to stretch your dough pretty effortlessly. Now take a baking sheet and oil your baking sheet pretty generously. Honestly guys, a focaccia, you're essentially shallow frying it. Now place your dough onto the bake sheet and spread it end to end. Using your fingers, make insertions into the dough. This process is called docking. What this does is it adds texture to your focaccia. Now take your basil leaves and insert them into the dough. You could really use any herb at this point, like a fresh rosemary, a fresh thyme, but the herb has to be fresh. Now take your caramelized onions and sprinkle them all over your focaccia. If you see, I have kept the caramelized onions a little less caramelized than usual. That's because these are going to go into the oven and caramelize further. You could top your focaccia with literally anything. Bell peppers, olives, people even add potatoes. Now cover this with a wet cloth and let it proof for another 30 to 40 minutes. So while our dough rises for the next 30 to 40 minutes, here's a bonus for you. I'm going to show you how to make basil oil and a chili oil, which will be an excellent dipping oil for your focaccia. This is really easy guys. All I have is some hot oil and a small cup of basil leaves and chili flakes. Simply pour this hot oil over your chili flakes and your basil leaves. And by the time our focaccia is ready, the oil will have infused with all that flavor. Let's take a sneak peek and you'll see that 45 minutes on, our dough has doubled in size. Now take some sea salt, preferably some sea salt, and sprinkle it all over your focaccia. So our bread is good to bake. Bake this at 230 degrees Celsius for about 20 to 25 minutes till it's deep golden brown. You want to handle your dough with utmost care. You don't want any of those bubbles to leave your dough. Only then will you get a nice fluffy bread. Goodness gracious, tell me that color is not divine. A hot focaccia is hungry. And what you have to do now is take some olive oil and sprinkle it all over your focaccia. Now I know you are tempted to cut this bread right away, but please do not cut this bread till it's completely cooled off. Now with your basil oil and your chili oil, this is gonna make for an excellent appetizer. Focaccia is full of tiny little pockets of surprise like this, full of flavor and full of surprises. Make this recipe your own, guys. And that's how you make focaccia. There's so much you can do with a focaccia. You could serve it as a toasty. You could even cut this piece of focaccia in half and make a beautiful sandwich. So do try it at home. You guys are gonna love it. Also, thank you for watching and like, share and subscribe.